Our wedding day had finally arrived, a day that's supposed to be filled with joy and celebration. I had spent months planning every detail, from the flowers adorning the aisle to the intricate lace on my wedding gown. It was a dream come true, or so I thought. Let me introduce you to the main characters in this story. I'm Charlotte, a woman deeply in love with David, my soon-to-be husband. David was the embodiment of kindness and charm, everything I had ever wanted in a partner. But there was one issue that would cast a shadow over our marital bliss: his parents, Harold and Margaret. The sun shone brilliantly that day, casting a warm, golden glow over the lush garden where we exchanged our vows. Family and friends gathered to witness our union, and smiles were aplenty. But as soon as I saw David's parents arrive, my heart sank. They walked into the reception hall with expressions that could curdle milk. Harold, a tall, stern man, wore a perpetual scowl. Margaret, his wife, carried herself with an air of superiority that didn't go unnoticed. It was as if they had decided I was the villain of their story before they even got to know me. I tried to put on a brave face and approached them with a welcoming smile. "Harold, Margaret, it's so lovely to see you," I said, extending my arms for a hug. Harold's handshake was firm, but his eyes remained cold. Margaret's lips curved into a thin smile, but her eyes betrayed her true feelings. "Well, this is quite the event," she remarked, her tone dripping with sarcasm. David, who had been mingling with guests, joined us, oblivious to the tension in the air. "Mom, Dad, I'd like you to meet my beautiful bride, Charlotte," he beamed. Harold's response was a curt nod, while Margaret managed to conjure a strained smile. "Yes, we've met," she said, her voice laced with condescension. Throughout the day, I couldn't shake the feeling that they were unpleasantly scrutinizing every aspect of our wedding, as if they were on a mission to find fault. Their passive, aggressive comments and icy demeanor were a stark contrast to the love and warmth radiating from our friends and family. As the evening wore on, I tried to brush off their behavior, chalking it up to nerves or perhaps a misunderstanding. I didn't want to ruin our special day with confrontations, but little did I know that this was just the beginning of a long and painful journey with David's parents. Little did I know that this was just the prologue to a story filled with resentment, manipulation, and ultimately, my quest for justice. In the years following our wedding, the cold atmosphere that had enveloped David's parents on that fateful day didn't dissipate. It lingered like a persistent storm cloud. Our once promising relationship turned into a battleground of passive, aggressive exchanges and unspoken resentment. David's parents, Harold and Margaret, lived just a short drive away, and they didn't hesitate to visit us regularly. Each visit felt like a tense encounter with the enemy. The moment their car pulled into our driveway, I could feel my stomach tie itself into knots. It wasn't as if I hadn't tried to mend the strained relationship. I made an effort to engage in polite conversation, prepare their favorite meals, and show genuine interest in their lives. But it seemed that nothing could thaw their icy disapproval of me. One evening, after they left our home, I could no longer contain the pain and frustration that had been building up inside me. I turned to David, my voice quivering with emotion. "David," I began, "I can't ignore it any longer. Your parents, they treat me so poorly, and it's hurting me." David looked at me with a hint of irritation in his eyes, as if he were tired of hearing about this issue. "Charlotte, you're imagining things. They're just reserved people. Don't take it so seriously." "But David," I pleaded, "it's more than just being reserved. They barely acknowledge me when they're here, and their comments, they're hurtful. I can't pretend that everything is fine." He sighed, clearly conflicted. "Look, I know they can be a bit difficult, but they mean well. Maybe you're reading too much into it." I felt a pang of disappointment. It seemed David wasn't willing to confront the reality of his parents' behavior. I was left alone with my thoughts and the growing certainty that something needed to change. As the years passed, the tension between us continued to mount. Each visit from Harold and Margaret brought a fresh wave of discomfort. They never missed an opportunity to criticize our choices, belittle our achievements, or remind me of my perceived shortcomings. It was as if they were determined to undermine our relationship at every turn. Despite the emotional toll their visits took on me, I persisted in my efforts to make things work. I believed in the power of family and hoped that, with time, they would come to accept me. But their coldness remained an insurmountable barrier, and I couldn't help but feel like an outsider in my own home. I knew that I couldn't continue to bear this burden in silence. The question remained, what would it take to break through the walls of their disdain? Or would I need to find a way to stand up for myself and protect the love that David and I shared? As the years went by, the tension between me and my husband's parents, Harold and Margaret, seemed insurmountable. Their coldness and constant disapproval hung over our heads like a never-ending cloud. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I needed to find a way to address the issue and hopefully find a resolution. One day, I stumbled upon an idea that I believed might change everything. I had saved up $100,000 for a dream vacation, and I saw an opportunity to invite Harold and Margaret to join us on this journey. It was a risky move, but I hoped that spending quality time together in a beautiful setting might bridge the gap between us. I approached David with my plan, nervous but determined. "David," I said, "I've been thinking. Maybe it's time we take a vacation together, all four of us. It could be a chance for your parents to get to know me better, and for us to build a stronger connection." David's eyebrows furrowed in surprise. He seemed taken aback by the idea. "Charlotte, are you sure about this? You know how they can be. It could just make things worse." I nodded, my resolve unwavering. "I understand the risks, David, but I can't keep living like this. I want to try and make things work with your parents, for our sake." David signed, his eyes filled with uncertainty. "All right, if you think it's worth a shot, I'll talk to them about it. But I can't guarantee they'll agree." Several days later, David called his parents and presented the idea of a family vacation. To my surprise, they agreed, albeit with a palpable reluctance. I couldn't help but wonder what had convinced them to accept my invitation. Was it genuine interest in reconciling, or did they have ulterior motives? A week later, we were all on a plane heading to Bali, one of the most picturesque destinations in the world. The prospect of spending 2 weeks together in paradise filled me with a mix of excitement and apprehension. I hoped that the stunning landscapes and the relaxed atmosphere of our surroundings might soften their hearts. We checked into one of the best hotels in Bali, a luxurious oasis nestled among lush tropical gardens and overlooking the cerulean waters of the Indian Ocean. The beauty of the place was awe-inspiring, and I couldn't help but hope that it would work its magic on all of us. On our first day in Bali, we decided to take a dip in the hotel's stunning infinity pool. David and his father eagerly leaped into the water, reveling in the refreshing embrace of the pool, while Margaret and I opted to relax on the sun loungers nearby. As I lay there, soaking in the warmth of the tropical sun, I couldn't shake the feeling that Margaret still viewed me with disdain. Her eyes, hidden behind oversized sunglasses, seemed to dart my way, always vigilant and critical. I attempted to strike up a conversation. "Margaret, have you ever been to Bali before?" I asked, trying to keep the tone light. She signed, her response laced with thinly veiled annoyance. "No, I haven't. But it's become quite the tourist destination, hasn't it? Not exactly my idea of a serene getaway." I bit my lip, trying to hide my frustration. It seemed even the breathtaking beauty of Bali couldn't melt the frosty demeanor of my husband's mother. As the days passed, I remained optimistic, hoping that shared experiences and the wonders of Bali might bring us closer together. Little did I know that this tropical paradise would become the backdrop for a pivotal moment that would forever change the dynamics between us. Our days in Bali rolled on, each one a mix of stunning adventures and simmering tensions. It was as if paradise itself couldn't thaw the icy demeanor of my husband's parents, Harold and Margaret. One of the things we'd come to realize was that David's mother and I shared a mutual aversion to water activities. While David and his father reveled in the crystal-clear waters of Bali's beaches, Margaret and I chose to sunbathe, seeking refuge on the sandy shores. We settled into our sun loungers, side by side, but worlds apart. The sun was intense, casting a warm embrace over the beach, but there was no warmth between us. The tension was palpable, and the silence spoke volumes. I decided to break the ice and initiate a conversation. "Margaret, I noticed you prefer sunbathing over swimming. Is it because you're not a fan of the water?" She adjusted her oversized sunglasses and sighed audibly. "Yes, that's right. I've never been one for water activities. They're rather unpleasant." I nodded, hoping to find some common ground. "I understand. Water activities aren't for everyone. Some people find them intimidating." Margaret's response was dismissive. "It's not just the water activities, Charlotte. It's the whole atmosphere. Bali is beautiful, yes, but it's become so commercialized. It's lost its charm." I felt a twinge of frustration. It seemed that even the beauty of this tropical paradise couldn't bridge the gap between us. I watched as Margaret closed her eyes, seemingly uninterested in continuing the conversation. As the day wore on, I couldn't help but observe the stark contrast between our family dynamics and the harmonious interactions of other vacationers around us. Couples laughed and played in the water, families built sandcastles together, and friends enjoyed the beach with exuberance. Our group, on the other hand, felt like a collection of distant individuals sharing a common location rather than a united family. Despite my best efforts, I couldn't escape the feeling of being an outsider. Margaret's disapproval still hung over me like a shadow, and I longed for the day when we could truly connect as a family. The beach days passed, and we ventured into exploring more of Bali's wonders. We visited lush temples, hiked through picturesque rice terraces, and marveled at stunning waterfalls. Each experience brought new opportunities for bonding, but it seemed Harold and Margaret remained firmly entrenched in their disdainful attitudes. One evening, after a long day of sightseeing, I found myself gazing at the brilliant sunset over the horizon. I couldn't help but wonder if this beautiful island held the key to breaking through the icy barriers that had formed between us. Little did I know that the next leg of our journey would take us into a jewelry store and set the stage for a confrontation that would forever alter the course of our vacation. Our journey through Bali had been a mix of breathtaking scenery and lingering tension. The rift between me and my husband's parents, Harold and Margaret, showed no sign of closing. But hope, like the soft glow of a setting sun, was persistent, and I clung to it. One sunny afternoon, as we explored the bustling streets of Bali, we stumbled upon a charming jewelry store. Its windows were adorned with glittering gemstones and intricate designs that beckoned passersby to enter. Inside, the store was a treasure trove of beauty, with display cases showcasing exquisite pieces of jewelry. David's eyes gleamed as he surveyed the collection, and his enthusiasm was contagious. Amidst the gleaming array of necklaces, bracelets, and rings, David picked out a pair of delicate diamond earrings. He turned to me with a warm smile, his eyes filled with affection. "Charlotte, these are for you," he said, presenting the earrings. My heart swelled with gratitude and love. "David, they're beautiful." "Thank you," I replied, my voice filled with emotion. As David paid for the earrings, Margaret and Harold watched in silence, their expressions inscrutable. The air in the store seemed to thicken as we exchanged smiles and shared a moment of genuine affection. Little did I know that this innocent gesture of love would provoke a storm of hostility. As we left the store, Margaret couldn't contain herself any longer. She turned to me, her face twisted with malice. "Charlotte," she sneered, "those earrings might make you look better, but they can't change who you are. You're nothing but a beggar." I was taken aback by her cruel words, feeling a surge of anger and hurt. David, who had been walking ahead, turned to us in surprise, sensing the tension in the air. "What's going on?" he asked, his brow furrowed. Margaret didn't hold back, her tone dripping with disdain. "David, your wife is just a gold digger trying to use you for your money. Those earrings won't change that." My face flushed with a mixture of anger and disbelief. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Margaret, how can you say that?" I retorted, my voice trembling with indignation. "I love your son, and I never asked for any of this. These earrings were a gift from his heart." Harold, who had remained silent, finally spoke up, his words cutting like a knife. "David, we've had enough of this. We didn't come to Bali to witness your wife's materialistic antics. We want you to see the truth." David was torn, caught in the crossfire between the woman he loved and the parents he cared about deeply. He turned to me, his eyes filled with conflict. "Charlotte, is there any truth to what they're saying?" I felt my heart breaking as I looked into David's eyes. "David, you know me. I've never cared about your money. I love you for who you are, not what you have." He seemed torn, his gaze shifting between me and his parents. "I need some time to think," he finally said, his voice heavy with uncertainty. As we walked back to the hotel, the weight of Margaret's accusations hung over us like a dark cloud. I couldn't believe that a simple act of love and generosity had spiraled into such hostility. Little did I know that this confrontation would be a turning point, leading to a decision that would change the course of our vacation and our lives forever. The evening following the confrontation at the jewelry store was fraught with tension. David, my husband, and I sat in our hotel room, the air heavy with unspoken words. I could sense the conflict brewing within him, torn between the woman he loved and the parents he cared for deeply. Finally, David broke the silence. "Charlotte," he began, his voice cautious, "I need to know the truth. Are you with me for my money?" I felt a mix of emotions welling up inside me, anger, sadness, and frustration. How could his parents' hurtful accusations cast such a shadow over our relationship? But I knew that this was a crucial moment, one where I needed to stand my ground. "David," I replied, my voice steady, "I love you, not your money. I've never asked for anything, and I never will. Those earrings were a gift from your heart, and I cherished them for that reason alone." David's gaze softened, and I could see the conflict in his eyes. I want to believe you, Charlotte, but my parents? Before he could finish his sentence, I interrupted, frustration bubbling over. David, your parents have been poisoning our relationship from the beginning. They've never given me a chance. They've made it clear that they don't want me in your life. But I'm your wife, and I deserve respect and trust. David sighed, running a hand through his hair. I know this is difficult, but they're my family, and I can't just cut them out of my life. I nodded, understanding his predicament, but I couldn't let their unwarranted accusations go unanswered. David, I won't force you to choose between me and your family, but I won't tolerate baseless accusations either. I can't live in a marriage where I'm constantly undermined and disrespected. He looked at me, his eyes filled with sadness. What are you saying, Charlotte? I took a deep breath, my heart heavy with the weight of my decision. I'm saying that I need some time away from this situation. I can't stay here and endure their hostility. I'm going back home. David's eyes widened in shock. You're leaving? I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. Yes, David. I need to protect myself and our relationship. This isn't healthy for either of us. With that, I packed my bags and left the hotel room, leaving David with a difficult choice to make. As I boarded the flight back home, I couldn't help but feel a mix of sadness and relief. It was a painful decision, but I believed it was necessary to preserve my self-respect and dignity. Back home, I settled into my old life, but the wounds from Bali still stung. I had taken a stand, and I was determined to find a way to make David understand that I wasn't the villain in this story. It was time to fight for the love we shared and to confront the toxicity that had seeped into our relationship. Word of my departure reached David, and he was faced with a choice: to stand by the woman he loved or to continue to be torn between his wife and his parents. It was a turning point in our journey, one that would ultimately lead to a legal battle, a quest for justice, and a discovery of the strength that had always resided within me. My return home marked the beginning of a tumultuous chapter in my life, one that I had never anticipated when I first walked down the aisle with David. I had taken a stand against the toxic dynamics fueled by his parents, and the consequences were profound. The news of my departure from Bali and the strained relationship between me and my husband, David, couldn't stay hidden for long. Soon, rumors began to circulate among our friends and extended family, and it wasn't long before it reached David's parents, Harold and Margaret. Their reaction was as predictable as it was painful. Instead of reflecting on their role in the turmoil, they doubled down on their belief that I was the villain in this story. They saw my decision to leave as an attempt to manipulate their son and seize control of his wealth. Within weeks, my life took an unexpected turn. David, torn between his loyalty to his parents and his love for me, found himself facing a difficult decision. He didn't want to lose me, but he also didn't want to alienate his family. The strain on our relationship was unbearable. One day, I received a summons to appear in court. David had filed for divorce. It was a devastating blow, and I couldn't believe that our love had come to this. I consulted with the best lawyer in town, determined to protect my rights and ensure a fair resolution. The legal battle that ensued was grueling, marked by bitter accusations and painful revelations. David claimed that our marriage had irreparably broken down due to my unwillingness to reconcile with his parents. He argued that I had abandoned our relationship by leaving Bali. I, on the other hand, asserted that my departure had been a necessary step to protect my mental and emotional well-being. I provided evidence of the hostile environment I had endured and the emotional distress it had caused me. I was determined to stand up for myself and prove that I was not the villain in this story. The courtroom became the stage for a fierce confrontation, not only between me and David, but also between the love I had for him and the injustice I had suffered. Our lawyers presented evidence, called witnesses, and dissected our relationship for the world to see. As the proceedings continued, it became clear that this was not just a battle for divorce. It was a battle for my dignity and my right to be treated with respect. I couldn't let Harold and Margaret's unfounded accusations define me. I had to prove that I deserved justice. The trial reached its climax when my lawyer presented a series of emails and text messages that documented the hostile interactions between me and my husband's parents over the years. The messages revealed the true nature of their disdain for me and the emotional toll it had taken. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. David and I were divorced, and I was awarded a substantial portion of his property. It was a hard-fought victory, one that finally validated my feelings and my right to be treated with respect. The aftermath of the legal battle was tumultuous. David, realizing the toxic influence of his parents, distanced himself from them. He tried to make amends with me, but the scars from the ordeal ran deep. I had fought for my dignity and won. and I couldn't forget the pain I had endured. In a surprising turn of events, Harold and Margaret, confronted by the consequences of their actions, came to me with apologies. They asked for the return of their son's property, but I stood my ground. I had earned what was rightfully mine, and I wasn't about to let it slip away. With the legal battle behind me and newfound independence, I embarked on a journey of self-discovery. I learned that I was stronger and more resilient than I had ever imagined. I also learned that sometimes standing up for yourself is the most powerful revenge of all. The sense of independence was exhilarating, and I relished the chance to make decisions